This story includes several updates. Am I the idiot for telling my wife she needs to be accountable for her actions? My wife, 30F, and I, 35 male, bought our house 5 years ago and it needs work, but time and money are always a constraint. Right now, my wife is not working while she goes back to school and I'm working second shift as the sole earner. Since my wife is home more than me, she has been handling most of the work that's been done around the house, including dealing with contractors. She comes from a family of DIYers who tend to shoot from the hip with projects, while I prefer to have a plan in place before we do any work. And the most recent projects that she's spearheaded have been, in my opinion, subpar. Some examples. Our privacy fence gate doesn't close right and she hasn't gotten the contractor to come to fix it for months. The internet line wasn't buried deeply enough by the contractors, and I think she should have sent them away when they didn't have the right equipment. She decided, without my input, to use a cleanser on our house before restaining it, and the cleanser left streaks in the wood that cannot be covered by the stain. We have a wooden sculpture in our yard that she did not clean and it is dark and disgraced and looks like crap. She doesn't see anything wrong with it. Most recently we had gutter work done, and I wanted a gutter put on the back of our new shed. She forgot to tell the contractor where I wanted the downspout and he put it in the opposite corner, so now the water is just going to collect behind the shed, which is exactly what I wanted to avoid. She called me at work to give me this news and I spent the rest of the day frustrated. When I got home, I asked what we were going to do about this and she said something about fixing it ourselves. I told her that it would never be right if we fixed it ourselves, that I already paid for the work to be done right the first time and we're just pissing away money and time with needing to redo all these projects that she's been half-assing. I asked if she even cared about the quality of work that is being done on the house and said that maybe she shouldn't be involved with any more projects on the house unless communication improves. She just sat in silence and slept on the couch without speaking to me. This morning, I asked if she was going to talk to me and she said, "I don't know." I was exasperated and asked if she could just tell me what is wrong and she replied, "I'm scared of you." She told me she wished I had approached the issue by looking for a solution and I told her that she just doesn't want to be accountable for her actions. She said she just wants us to be partners. I could be the idiot for how I went about telling her about my feelings, but I feel like there's no way for me to give her negative feedback without her freaking out. Am I the idiot for telling my wife that she needs to be accountable for her actions? My opinion. Original poster. First of all, your wife's desire to fix things herself and save you guys money comes from a good place. She couldn't have fathomed she will make so many mistakes and mess up such delicate projects and she thought she was just helping. You are the idiot cause you were too mean and director etc. You just want to give instructions. You should have thanked her first for her contributions, but you would rather act like the Lord and Master and berate a woman who is just trying to help. I'm sure you never picked up an hammer to help her out, but you can give orders. You are the whole. The top replies. You are the idiot. Original poster. You want to call all the shots while having her do all the work. In your mind, it's her job to, silently and smoothly, assure that everything ends up as you wanted it. It's as if you were the boss and she were your assistant, whose job it is to carry out your wishes. If she fails at getting your way for you, you feel entitled to accuse her of half-assing, and pissing away money, and all kinds of other things, blaming and shaming out frustration that she didn't fulfill your wishes correctly. She isn't the one with the communication problem. She would like to have a civil discussion and approach problems as partners, while you'd rather accuse that she just doesn't want to be accountable for her actions. That being the case, unless communication improves, is entirely on you. I absolutely do believe that she is scared of you. You drip with superiority. You think you're better than your wife, entitled to tell her what to do and to judge how well she carries the instructions out, and that's a huge red flag. I hope you two don't have kids. The second reply. Based on your own words, you responded in an accusatory tone. I told her that she just doesn't want to be accountable for her actions, right after she admitted she was scared of you. I highly doubt this is her feigning fear, as a different user speculated. After being barraged the night before, your wife gave constructive criticism on how she would prefer to discuss sensitive topics in the future, in a more partner-focused, kind, and solution-based way. You broached this entire subject with frustration, and accused her of carelessness and pissing away money, seemingly without bringing up a communication issue or less drastic solutions at all. Instead, you jumped straight to suggesting that she should be removed from all projects. With this kind of angry and accusatory reaction, it's not at all crazy to think that she would be silent and afraid of you. Seems like it was just a way for you to blow off steam and shame her. Her request for you to communicate in a kind and constructive way is not ridiculous in the slightest, just as much as it's not ridiculous to want things in your house to be done well or for her to communicate better. But words do matter, and how you wield them has consequences. Just remember what your true priority is here. Is it the project, or is it having a loving partnership with your wife? After you decide on these priorities, then you can work together on how to deal with the house projects. Or not work together at all. The third reply. Thinking that you may be the idiot in this one. You bought a fixer-upper, so you knew that there would be a lot of work to do. Partner is not working, but managing the repairs on the house, which sounds like work to me. She's basically working as the main contact with the contractors doing the work. So daily, she's dealing with multiple decisions regarding the house and going to school, also very stressful and time-consuming. Perhaps she is in over her head with it all. But your post doesn't sound like you would be very approachable when something goes wrong. If she is dealing with multiple stressors and you're losing your $+T if something goes wrong, I could see where she would be afraid to talk to you about it. Let's do the math. 2 stressors for you, known work stressors and house renovation, which you are not directly dealing with, and at least 5 stressors for her, school, dealing with the renovations and each individual contractor, dealing with you trying to hold her accountable when something goes wrong, you not giving her proper respect for what she is doing as far as trying to manage the renovations, like it's not a big job in itself, and it sounds like you being the idiot if there's a problem. I'd say the woman has plenty on her plate right now. When is the last time you took her out of all that stress, made her feel important, and just spent quality time with her? Maybe you should worry more about making repairs to your relationship than the house. House renovation is always a stressful situation. It would suck to have the house of your dreams and nobody to share it with. You need to pay attention to what she is saying to you. Update. I posted about 5 months ago about an argument my wife and I had, and I was determined to be the idiot. Original post here. Recently someone commented on that post asking if my wife has left me yet, so I decided to update. A lot of people recognized that the way I spoke with my wife was full of frustration and anger, which was unproductive, but even more than that, it was scary to my wife. U/Willoxish had an excellent comment pointing out that I was just blowing off steam and that my priority should be my partnership. We covered a lot of topics in the weeks following that incident. We had a couples therapy session to talk about strategies and communication. I saw one of my coworkers react in anger and frustration instead of taking the time to become calm, and realized from the outside looking in just how unproductive his behavior was. And then my wife showed me a section of one of our self-help books. It's called The 5 Personality Patterns, and my therapist had recommended it to me a while back. We had been reading it together, my wife and I, but then we got busy and we stopped. She picked it back up after our fight and read about the leaving pattern. She underlined a bunch of sections and read them to me. And I finally understood. I grew up in a house where my parents screamed and yelled at each other or picked fights in order to storm out of the house, and that's how I used to interpret my wife's silence. As a way to win the fight. In reality, when she became silent, she was terrified. She wasn't stonewalling me, or trying to win the fight by manipulating me, or trying to avoid taking responsibility. She was so scared in that moment that she wasn't even in her body. She couldn't even speak, she was totally dissociated. She told me that even though she knows that how I was acting wasn't objectively scary, that her threshold for shutting down is really low. Realizing how much I scared my wife broke my heart. The descriptions of dissociation in the book were terrifying to me. My wife is the sweetest person. I love her so much and I never want her to experience what she experienced that day ever again. It changed my perspective completely. Ever since my realization, our relationship is better than ever. We laugh and tease each other playfully. We have worked on projects together. We've talked about chores and money. We've even had a couple of fights and resolved them quickly and lovingly. Our communication is better because we trust each other. My wife told me that she has never felt safer or more loved now. I won't say I'm glad the fight happened, but what I realized because of it has been a turning point in our marriage for the better. The top replies. This makes me so happy. It's heartbreaking when I read get a divorce as advice.
Marriage is like a house. At first everything is shiny and brand new, but over the years it's lived in, worn out, and needs maintenance.
Eventually, you'll need a new roof. So what do? Buy a new house or repair your roof? If you buy a new house, eventually you have the same issues with the new house because you never learned to repair your first house. Kudos for repairing your roof. Marriage. I can totally relate to the construction projects. We are almost finished with a $100,000 remodel of my backyard. I cannot tell you how many times I was asked something and totally gave the deer in the headlights look. They completely tore out my pool and moved it over several feet away from the pool house. When he asked me if I was happy with the pool placement, I didn't know what to say other than, "Did you move it over? Is that why you brought all of the director tea and filled it back up?" I felt so stupid. I just said okay, cool. Looks good to me. Fingers crossed my husband agrees because I have no idea what to look for. The second reply. I grew up in a similar household as you and luckily also had a partner patient enough to allow me to work through my communication issues. My brother, on the other hand, is also married to someone who grew up in the same type of house and neither of them has broken the pattern. I forgot this and set a boundary one day on vacation that led to me leaving the area and doing something else, specifically to avoid escalating my annoyance into anger. He was splashing me from the pool while I was reading lol. He took that as me silently storming off because that is how we grew up and got super upset. I had to sit him down later and be like, "I'm not mad at you. I set a boundary by asking you to stop splashing me or else I would leave. You didn't stop, so I left." I dislike feeling angry, so if verbal communication isn't working, I remove myself from the situation because my emotional overreaction is no one else's problem to deal with. It was an idiot ha moment for him because literally, no one in our family is capable of stopping the anger train lol. Anyway, I'm just mentioning that story because I find that, almost overly, communicating to my partner helps avoid any misconceptions. Like, "I am annoyed at what you said, but I'm not laying down in bed sulking. I just need space and time to process my own reaction to what you said. I'm not angry at you." It's not a perfect system by any means, but it helps me control and reduce the effect my anger has on others. The second story. My son is dead and my wife's in ICU. 3 days ago there was a horrible crash. A drunk driver who has already had his license suspended and had been arrested for DUI crashed into my wife while she was driving home from picking my son up from school. Dinner was on the stove. She asked me to watch the oven. I awaited my family's arrival. I'll never forget seeing the police at my door. My heart dropped. I knew something horrible had happened. When paramedics got there, my son was barely there. He flatlined twice on the way to the hospital, then passing away 20 minutes after I arrived. I'd like to think he was waiting for me, holding on for me. 5 years old. Such innocence. My wife's in ICU. She's had 4 surgeries in 3 days, one being a major one. She has to learn to walk again, if she ever can. There's swelling on the side of her brain the doctors say they have under control. I had to tell her today, when she was finally stable. They had to sedate her. My family is broken, my innocent boy is dead, and the driver is walking away with a broken arm. Life's unfair. I spend all visiting hours with my wife, being strong for my wife, and when I go home I sleep in my boy's bed that my legs hang off the end and cry into his favorite Minecraft blanket. Life isn't fair. I have alarms set for the morning, to get my son off to school. For a second I'm slightly aggravated about waking up and think to myself, time to get my son up. I haven't cancelled them yet. That'd mean he was really gone. And I don't think I could live this life without him. The top replies. I didn't want this going to original poster, but as soon as I read the title I thought, drunk driver? Then I read the first 2 lines and I think, drunk driver. There needs to be some major changes around here.
I think people need to start reporting people they know who drive while drunk.
There's no way in hell this was that person's first time on the road while intoxicated. They also need to be put on a list where they are not allowed to purchase alcohol. Too severe? Ask original poster. If they're on the list and caught drinking, they and the person who sold the alcohol should be punished.
Too many lives are ruined by this stupidity.
And let's not rule out those who text and drive. I see it on the road all the time. These people are just as likely to kill someone. Second reply. You will find a way to work through each day. You carry so many perfectly wonderful memories of your son that only you and your wife share. Hold on to those memories and tell the world about your amazingly ordinarily extraordinary little boy. The law should hold the creature who did this accountable. I hope he carries the weight of the consequences for his deliberate actions for the rest of their tormented life, but also to learn from it, which they didn't before. You and your wife have a long journey ahead. Focus on her and her recovery. Take counseling and therapy for your own pain, although right now it is too raw. Carry your memories close to your heart and write them down. Save those photos and video clips in different places, but always in your heart. The third reply. I'm so angry for you. Why do the innocent people go too soon? It seems like the worst scum of the earth come out on top. All I can do is keep you and your family in my thoughts. Although it's not enough for what you've lost, I hope that you get justice. I do recommend eventually, later down the line, writing a letter to the judge that previously released him. Not to necessarily place blame, but to share what you have lost. That judge should know your wife and son's faces. It may encourage tougher sentencing for doers.